Rightio, well, I've had a couple of people ask me about doing a couple more videos, and we're just going to have a quick look at setting up your press and your dies for full length sizing your brass. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at this setup I've got here. I've got a Lee classic cast turret press. It's a very strong press, probably recognised as one of the strongest around, more than sufficient for what most people are going to ever want or need to use a press for. A press is designed to perform multiple tasks. One of the ones is to get our piece of brass back to size, so it fits factory specifications. So here's a piece of 308 brass that I've shot. We've picked it up, brought it back here, and we want to reuse that case. So let's give it a go. I've got my Lee full-length resizing die. It has the depriming pin in the centre there, you see. The depriming pin will push the primer out of the case, in the centre of the case here. And inside, which of course is a bit difficult to see, inside what happens is we'll push the case back up inside the die, and that'll squeeze it in and push it back into factory specifications. So let's have a look at how we set that up. Now we have our press. We want to screw our die down into the press, and to get the setting correct, we get our shell holder. It's a number 2 Lee shell holder here. We click that into the press, and to adjust it correctly we drop the press right down to the bottom of the stroke, and we lower our full length sizer die down till the shell holder touches the bottom of the die. You see that there? We're at the bottom of the stroke and the shell holder is pushed up against the die. That's going to get that piece of brass back to factory specifications. So that being all set, you see I have the Lee locking ring. Just happens that I've done it many times so that the locking ring's in the right spot. I tighten that down and that's now ready to go. It's all just done hand tight. You can loosen it off again so that it's easy to load up or to remove. Rightio, now I have my piece of brass, but to size this down there's a fair bit of force involved, and we're going to put it under a bit of duress. So to help with that, we're going to lubricate the piece of brass. Now there's many different methods of lubricating the brass. You've got Hornady one shot. It's quite a popular method. It's a spray-on type lubricant, but what I use is I've got onto now the Hornady sizing lube. Now this is applied with a pad. This is a Lyman pad. The idea is that you put your lubricant onto the pad. It's a soft spongy pad, and that will hold the lubricant. This is a very efficient and very cost-effective way of lubricating your cases. The spray is great, but it's about 18 bucks a can, and you go through a can fairly quickly. With the lubricating pad, the lubricant was 11 bucks at Fishing and Outdoor World in town here in Darwin, and the pad I think might have been $12. So for not much more than a can of one shot, I can lube and size thousands and thousands and thousands of cases. I've probably got just under about a quarter of a bottle there, and I've probably done 2,000 or 3,000 cases with it. Anyway, the lube pad's pretty simple. You drop your case onto the lube pad, you roll the case across the lube pad. That just allows a small amount of lubricant to be applied to the case, and that's pretty much ready to go. But before I finish, I use a Q-tip or a earbud type tip, and I lubricate the inside. Now that I've put a drop of that same lubricant onto the Q-tip, and then I'm just applying that inside the neck of the case. The idea there is that once the case is pushed through and squeezed back into shape. There's an expander ball on our depriming pin which will push the neck of the case back out to the right specifications. We don't want to put that under too much stress, so we give that a bit of lubricant too. But generally I'm doing multiple cases, and I'll probably do that to every 5th or 6th one. I don't really lubricate every one of them. Some people do, but I seem to find that every 5th or 6th case is probably enough. Anyway, pretty simple procedure. We slip it into the shell holder. The idea of the shell holder is that it will prevent the shell from being stuck in the case. You can pull it back down, so it acts like an extractor claw on your rifle. Clip it into the place there. We raise the arm, squeeze it down. You might have heard that little ping. That was the primer being popped out. We lower it back down. And that case has now had the primer removed, and it's back to factory specifications. So pretty simple sort of procedure. We've got a couple more here. I'll just run them through really quickly. Roll on the pad. Now I've already lubricated the first one, so I won't bother with these guys. Just through on the press, and very simple. So that's for full length sizing back to factory spec. But because I'm shooting different rifles and I'm shooting my own brass, we may not need to go right back to factory specifications. Here I've got a 4570 case. This is a nickeled case, Remington nickeled case. They look pretty, but other than that it's exactly the same as a brass case. I've shot this in my own 4570. I've got a Marlin, and I don't want to take this right back to factory spec. If you squeeze a 4570 case right back to factory specifications, being a straight-walled case as opposed to a bottleneck case like the 308 here, you're taking the size right back down quite small. You're overworking the brass more than really is necessary. All I really want to do is get it back down enough so that if I get a 458 cal projectile, like something along the lines of this, it will squeeze back into the case and hold it in place without falling back out. But really that's all I need it to do. I need it to be able to fit in the gun and go back into the case and have enough tension within the neck to hold that piece of that projectile into place. So I'm going to set that up to do that. What we do, we're going to remove the 308 die. We'll whack in the 4570 die. Now the difference you see here, what I've done is the depriming pin sits flush on the 308. That goes right back to factory specifications, but I've actually lowered it on the 4570. You see how it's recessed here? It actually sticks out further on the bottom. Now if I full length resized with this die, it's pushing down too far and it's going to bottom out and hit the bottom of the case. But you know I'm not going to do that. I'm going to partially full length resize. So my 4570 case, I whack that in. I'll get my shell holder. It's a number 8 for the 4570. Now we lubricate the same. The difference here is that we're not taking the case so far into the die. So if I raise that up, you see that there's quite a bit of gap there. We've probably got about 3 or 4 mil gap in the case between the bottom of the die and the shell holder. So I lubricate same as I would and place it into the shell holder. When I full length resize now, we have the primer pop out. I've squeezed the neck back down so that my projectile will now be a nice tight fit and hold in place on the within the case. So you can use your full length resizing die as a partial full length resizer fairly simply. Just raise it up a few turns so it's not hitting the shell holder. I raised it up, it's probably about 2 turns I've raised it, and that gives me enough neck tension to hold the projectile in place without having to squeeze the case right back down and overwork the brass. That'll give you a longer lifespan with your brass, and you're putting the brass under less stress. You get a bit longer life out of it. It'll give you a little bit better accuracy because it's designed to fit your gun. Okay, thank you.